Hey everybody, this is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook stream video about the clash of Cinemizations, the Captain America versus the Neja 2 movie, but also more than that, obviously. The clash of US and China, and more broadly, of multipolarity and hegemony as world systems. This has to be a bit shorter. I gotta cut it a bit short because I have events to do later on today. So we'll try to focus in really uh, as best as possible into the topic. But yeah, so in case you don't know, Captain America: Brave New World just came out recently, and then also there's a Chinese movie, uh, Neja 2. Neja 1 came out several years ago. Actually, our kids really, really like that movie. They watched it several times in a row. And yeah, full disclosure, I have not seen all these movies. But I get basically what they are about. I've read about, basically the story. That's more what I'm interested in. I'm not really interested in reviewing these movies in particular. If you came here to get a movie review, I apologize. I'm using this as a jumping off point to talk about um what is happening in a broader world context, civilizational context. But also, I do recommend that people watch Neja 2. I don't know about Captain America. There's many, I don't know, there's many issues there. But Neja 2 is, at the present, is breaking all kinds of records. I believe it is on track to be the highest grossing animated film of all time. Um, it's slated to reach a $2 billion mark. In Asia 2 has broken the highest grossing film in a single market record, which is was it 1.4 billion? It's well over 1 billion in one country. So inside of China, this film Neja 2 has basically broken every single record for most revenue inside a single country. Now, I think worldwide there are still movies that are larger. I think at the current trajectory, they're saying it will probably be the fifth highest grossing movie of all time soon. It's unclear exactly, obviously. We're still early days. Neja 2 just released in the United States. And so that's interesting what is going to happen there. Like, will American Westerners see it? Or Americans and other countries see it? That's going to, alter things. I'm not here to necessarily argue about the box office numbers or, which movie is better in particular. But I just want to say that what is happening is interesting. It's one of many dimensions of this topic I've covered a lot recently. One interesting thing is if you look at the narrative, right, of what is Neja 2 actually about? Not the I don't want the profit. I want let's just compare what the stories are actually about. After the heavenly lightning, although Neja and Ao Bing survived by becoming spirits, they would soon dissipate completely. Tai Yi plans to rebuild Neja and Ao Bing's mortal bodies with the 7-colored precious lotus. However, during the process of reconstruction, numerous obstacles arise. What will become of Neja and Ao Bing? Well, that's the basic. But I'm trying to get I should probably be more yeah, that's more what I want. A boy who battles demons with his magical powers to become China's grossest film ever. But it's actually an ancient story that is it's in deep in the Chinese lore. Actually, no, that Dragon Ball Z Dragon Ball Z comes from Monkey King stories, right? Like Wukong, the Monkey King, the video game, and the Goku's character is basically the Monkey King. That's why he was a monkey earlier on in the series. And so those stories are pervasive all throughout the whole large sections of the world, especially in Asia, not just in China. But those stories originate from China. And so this is one of these ancient. It's an animated show, but it's based upon the Chinese, thousands of years old Chinese, lore. And boy battles demons with magical powers. It raked in $1 billion in days. It stirs the national pride. I'm just gonna grab some random. This is Western media, so it's not gonna be very positive on Chinese films. Neja 2, based on Chinese mythological characters, raked in more than 8 billion yuan during the week long Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year holiday, according to ticket sales tracker Maoyan. It broke the record set by 2021. Battle of Lake Changjin. This is BBC. Which earned $900 million. Neja 2. Actually, if you can get access to it, watch Battle of Lake Changjin. Also, that's a very important movie. That's a real historical movie. But this is BBC. So Neja 2 is being hailed as a symbol of progress in Chinese film, which has long trailed Hollywood despite a massive domestic market. How of its domestic success, Neja 2 will be shown overseas next week, including in US, Canada, and Australia. Neja 2 shows how locally made films are becoming competitive globally. It's similar to Black Myth Wukong. I think I did a video about that, where Chinese games are also becoming competitive globally. AAA games are even being made. There's a Showa America stories coming out soon. That's like the Chinese fallout about collapsed dystopian America ruled by Imperial Japan. That's coming out soon. This is just the beginning as well. This is the beginning. It only showcases the strong power of Chinese animation film after its it not only showcases the strong power of Chinese animation after its rise, but also demonstrates the infinite possibilities of traditional Chinese mythology in modern contexts. Read one review. Some hope it could earn another $1 billion, surpass the world's highest grossing film of all time. Avatar. I mean, it's totally possible. Now it's over to the Chinese people overseas to chip in. Movie ticket sales in China surged during Chinese New Year festivities. The season saw Chinese films rake in $1.3 billion during the week-long holiday period, underscoring an increase in consumer spending that Chinese authorities have been hoping for. Aside from setting a new box office benchmark, it's also the first movie ever to cross $1 billion in a single market, as I said earlier. Neja 2 has been praised for its script and visual effects. Figurines of the movie characters have flown off the shelves as fans flock to cinemas to build. It builds on the success of 2019's Neja, which made more than $725 million. Anyway, so several things. One thing that is a takeaway is that the Chinese internal consumer market is massive, and that also highlights that in a more geopolitical, in a real world analysis context, China does not require external trade as much, and certainly not external consumption by the United States as it once did. It has vast internal circular economics. It produces and consumes inside of its own borders. Films, food, electric vehicles, world-class electric vehicles, deep-seek AI products, quantum computing, everything that the world needs, solar, wind, all the renewable energy, all the advanced technologies, high-speed rail that allows people to travel in tourist events, like, for example, during Chinese New Year, during Golden Week, and various other holidays, right? So China doesn't need the internal $1 billion+ Chinese ticket sales for this movie is part of their strategy as well, which is to become resilient and to have internal self-sustaining circular economic ecosystem, so that they cannot be easily subjugated or harmed or cajoled by the United States or any foreign power. But it's also cultural. It's also a cultural soft power win as well, as the world is watching more Chinese movies relative to Western films. Now Captain America. Captain America: Brave New World. Let me get the actual. Sam finds himself in the middle of an international incident after meeting with President Thaddeus Ross. He must soon discover the reason behind a nefarious global plot before the true mastermind has the entire world seeing red. It's there's much more to it than that. The entire world will see red. You know, it's like the red of the Chinese firecrackers and the red of the Red Army and the red of the Mao Zedong Little Red Book. Everybody's seeing red too late. Everybody's on Xiaohongshu. Everybody's on Little Red Book. Go get one before the U.S. bans it, because the U.S. is hegemony is. I mean, long story short, because we don't have a lot of time. The U.S. hegemony and Western imperial capitalist hegemony is falling apart, and it's you might want to figure out whatever you can get your hands on before it completely collapses. The entire world is on Xiaohongshu. I mean, I'm not even joking about that. Russia, South America, Africa, Europe, everyone, Pacific Native Hawaiians like myself, everybody's on Xiaohongshu. Not every single person on Earth, but people from all countries of the Earth are there, and there is no imperial capitalist, colonialist, Caucasoid supremacist moderation there. It's all, it's people, it's a communist party led socialism with Chinese characteristics, moderated, actual global village. And it's very fascinating. I would recommend anybody go and immediately get one. See the People's Liberation Army. Luigi Mangione. They love Luigi Mangione memes there, among other things. Ne Zhatu. Mao Zedong, Stalin, Lenin. Great world leaders. Unlike the West, don't have any. Captain America doesn't count. No, all U.S. presidents are war criminals. But anyway, okay. Rather than just insulting, but actually something I want to say, because I have a limited time. One thing I wanted to say is that it was interesting watching. I commented on Neja too. I said Captain. I said Captain America. Americans, it's time to pay your Neja tax, right? And so I said, love Neja, please defeat Captain Star Spangled Underpants, Captain America. The radish dog head is I am joking. Somebody is clowning. It's a not serious sarcastic face, right? That you just kind of like. It has like several meanings, but it's kind of like, this is not entirely serious, right? The little dog face. It's complicated. These are like very Chinese East. These are very Eastern Asia Pacific specific emojis. The West emoji semiotics, the Western emoji language is different. It's an interesting thing. And the Chinese are like, ha ha ha, Captain Underpants. But actually somebody had an interesting response here. This is actually from a Chinese person. I want to actually read this. This is part of why I wanted to make this video. So this is a Chinese person. I assume it's probably a Chinese person. From Jiangsu, said a bad movie that killed two superheroes. Speaking of Captain America, speaking of Captain America, the most recent film. A bad movie that killed two superheroes, Falcon and Captain America. It wanted to be sarcastic to China, but it changed its name to Japan because of the box office. It was a cowardly Captain America. The fourth movie is already full of performance art. I'm not sure that's incorrect. Probably not the best translation there. But the fourth movie is full of performance art, full of ridicule rather than film art. And our Neja, the villain, is talking about the United States. The groundhog is a third world country, and ordinary people all over the world, including the United States, are controlled by the American power class. We will speak out, even if Hollywood reduces the number of screenings. Captain America has only a few people in the 4 shows, and Asia is full and only given to the early morning shows on weekdays. The American upper class is really afraid that you can understand Neja. No, because that's what, as I understand it, because I was reading about the story in Neja, because Neja is the tagline, and that's one Chinese person's perspective on that, and they are very they are very serious in sports, and also they are competitive. This is the thing. People think that just because you have a communist party that subjugates capital and the wealthy and corporations to the needs of the people, as China does, they think that they're not competitive, right? There's so many misunderstandings when it comes to capitalism and capitalism business. But actually China is actually more competitive than the US. And then that's in sports, in business, in everything, in economics, in their industrial capacity, in like Instagram pictures, in music, in martial arts, they're very competitive. They're very competitive in many things. But then they also believe in everybody needs to have their needs met. So that's actually that's a East-West, U.S. China deep misunderstanding. There are deep cultural differences, and there are also deep historical and economic and civilizational differences that are like a lot of Red Note is people sorting through all of this stuff, which is a positive thing. But one of them is this deep competitiveness on the movies as well, right? Like, we want to have the movie that's selling the most tickets. We have to get in there. Everybody buy your Chinese diaspora, get in the American cinemas and buy tickets for the Neja, and don't buy Captain America. Everyone around the world buy as many Neja tickets so that we can be, on the top. They're very serious about that. It's and when it comes to like selling of products, right? They really want the products to they really try hard to make the best product and then have it do their best. They don't really believe in marketing too much. Like, people should watch you should watch the movies, and you should enjoy the products and buy the food or buy the Temu clothing, or $8,000 world-class BYD electric vehicles because they're good, not because somebody said they were good. But they also they try their best to always do their best. This is part of meritocratic culture, meritocratic Chinese culture. But anyway, but the interesting thing is actually the narrative. One of the interesting things is that the narrative of Neja, it's about like the underdog, right? It's about fight your fate, right? And it does have to do with, like, it is a metaphor for the world and for countries suffering under the boot of imperial power, the boot of the wealthy elites, in particular, obviously the U.S. oligarchic imperial elite, right? It's your fate is, like, you could read it as that. Like, it's also a Chinese historical story, but it is like a world story, right? It's about, like, you are destined to be a poor, undeveloped country that or of a poor, undeveloped class who serves others, right? And that's your fate because you were designed that way, and you must like, Africa is destined to be poor because they are just poor there, right? Not because external forces have chosen to exploit them and set them on that course, right? Or China is poor. China was the poorest country in the world, right? Or it was one in the top 10 or top 5 poorest in the world, or I should say the bottom 5 in right before the revolution, right? So that was the West would say it was the fate. They call them the sick men of Asia, or it was the fate of China to be owned by the British, the French, the Americans, and carved up, right? Just like Africa was. And that was the fate of their civilization. And so, but they said no. I mean, this is very important to their history, right? So their collective resistance in their revolution under the under Mao Zedong and the building of socialism with Chinese characteristics, and their rise, right, to become the most prosperous, advanced, technologically, politically, economically advanced country today. And in purchasing power parity terms, they are beyond the United States by a long shot, almost double at this point, almost double the economic size of the United States. And also that wealth is well distributed, as everybody's finding out on TikTok, and now is finding out on Red Note, right? And the people are, as I've talked about in these last few streams, people have Americans and the world is realizing that the Chinese have the best quality of life in terms of access to food, housing, healthcare, high-speed rail, clean cities, advanced cities, no violence, strife, or very little violence, very little lack of safety, no mass shootings, right? No threat of fascism, no, just horribly divided societies full of needless, like, kind of like constant needless constant struggle internally, like unproductive struggle, very little actual corruption relative to places like the United States, which is totally corrupt, right? The approval of the government is like 90+%. I try these statistics out all the time. Go watch the China Report or Breakthrough News, or if you want the English language, that's pretty good about being honest about the situation. Or a lot of the Ben Norton does a good job. He's in China, he's American in China, that reports on them from a anti-imperialist, socialist perspective. So, and so Neisha is their story, though. Their story, and this is a thing that I've been like learning every day. I spend more time on the Shaongshu probably now than Twitter or Western platforms, because they just certain things I find out on Twitter, and it's from some specific individuals. I'm really going to Twitter and YouTube and Western locations for like very specific individuals' takes, but not the the Western media. Western general milieu is not good. Not informative. Not very little truth in it. Many lies and smears. And but one thing that's happening is that many Americans are obviously realizing, their capitalist, oligarchic, imperial U.S. system run by billionaires, and there's a particular one in power now, but that system is not. It's not even a little bit has some problems. It's like basically the worst system. It's the worst system ever. People around the world suffer more from the U.S.'s system and ruling class, or its government and its that it has in place. But even inside the United States, it's a very low quality of life relative to China. And so that's why I think Neja does resonate. Neja too will resonate with Americans, because Americans want to see they want to change their fate, right? The Americans' fate is apparently just to be used up and discarded, and to have to choose between having healthcare or housing, or keep eating like half their daily recommended calories on a lot of that like toxic, poorly regulated food, and drink poorly highly toxic water in large cases, right? And just look forward to dwindling economic, political, mental health, and physical health situations, right? But Americans don't want that. So it's kind of like Neja is a Chinese story. The early, it's always a Chinese story, but in particular, like, kind of echoes a lot of what happened in the mid 20th century, and America never really had that. America did have a large. It's actually interesting if you look at Russia, China, America, three very large countries. Russia had a revolution, a massive, a popular uprising, a popular anger at their system, at their government, at their elites, right? And they overthrew it in the communist revolution in the early 20th century, 2017, they had many, there was a process, but 27, 2015, 2020, 2020, 1915 to like 1925, and it was always a struggle the whole time, and the West and the capitalist imperialists never allowed them a second of respite, really. But the communists, they did have established a communist party. They established the Soviet Union. They did at least they did the Soviet experiment and tried an alternative system. The United States had a socialistic communist party. Similarly, they have large masses of people upset with their capitalists and their elites in charge of the United States. The United States never had a revolution, right? They had a New Deal. The elites, Truman saved Roosevelt, right? FDR saved capitalism by bargaining the angry, upset masses who wanted to change their fate, right, with the New Deal. And it was a good deal for people, but it was not a revolution. The Chinese had an actual revolution with Mao Zedong, and that built the Communist Party of China and socialism with Chinese characteristics and that entire path, which was a very difficult path with many bumps in the road, but it is still a country that has subordinated the capitalist class, the oligarchic class, the rich, money itself, the people with the money, to their communist party, to the needs of the people through the Communist Party. Imperfect as it may be, but that is the case. The United States has never had that. The United States has never had a dominant communist party to subjugate the capitalist class, corporations, landlords, private entities, billionaires, millionaires, and the United States became the planetary superpower hegemon, right? So those are two separate things. China and Russia Russia was a very poor country, right? And then it rose and it grew under the Soviet Union. It rapidly advanced and challenged the United States. That was a Sputnik moment. That was the Russians putting satellites and putting men and dogs in space before America. And so the Union grew to become a very powerful, and they were influencing other countries in the world to move in their direction towards communism and decolonization. But they were still poor. They started out poor than the United States. And then there was the China had revolution, and they were, again, the fifth poorest in the world, right? This is I want to bring this up now because this is actually a clash of the civilizations. This is one of the misunderstandings between the West and the East. See, where did I post that? Shoot, I forgot where I posted it. Maybe I'll find it if I look at it. Shoots. That was a bad way to find it. Is there a way I can see all my comments? I forgot how to do that. Sorry. Okay. Anyways, I'll stop messing around with that. Basically, what was happening is that on the red note, one of the discussions that was happening is why an American asked how do Chinese young people have the ability to buy their own houses, right? How can Chinese, because Gen Z, even the young Chinese, 20-something Chinese, there's like a 60 to 80% home ownership rate. And so the American asked, don't the wealthy 60, 70, 80-year-olds, right, buy all of the houses and then rent them out, right, and use them as passive income, right, or sell off the houses as they increase property value, right, like America does. But the thing is, one of the reasons, and so I mean, so Chinese are trying to figure out why that is, and Americans are trying to figure out why that is. But I think one of the things that's missing there, the Chinese were like, well, if young Americans worked harder, maybe they would make more money and they could buy their house. And that's why young Americans have very low home ownership rates, right? And the Chinese have more. And maybe the Americans need to lower the housing cost. Maybe and Americans were saying like yeah, we need to have cheaper housing. We have to have like better interest rates, or maybe we have to just undo our entire capitalist system with mass collective action, right? That I can't really talk about too specifically on this channel, but like the thing is that like in America, right, on the Captain America side, in the 1950s, the United States was the richest country in the world, like per capita per person. Like much of the rest of the world was destroyed in World War II, right? The U.S. had just had the New Deal, which was again, it was a large giveaway of wealth by the rich to the masses to keep the capitalist system in place, to not have revolution, to subjugate and subordinate the billionaires and oligarchs and corporations under the mass people's communist party, right? And so America had a bunch of wealth. They weren't in tatters, right? They were separated from World War II by massive oceans. They had military industrial complex, mass industrialization, Ford, etc., making bullets, bombs, planes, tanks for the war. So they made vast wealth, industrializing, and all that together meant American boomers, right? So Americans who are 60, 70, 80 now, they had the richest. They were like some of the most economically, in terms of their material needs, they were some of the best off in the world, right? In the 1950s, China was one of the poorest in the world in the 1950s, right? So a Chinese 70-year-old today, right? They still have to they're still poor in a lot of senses, right? They did Chinese, the American boomers, by the time they were 40, they had 1 or 2 houses, right? American boomers, by the time they're 70, many have 5, 6, 10 houses, right? That they have the disproportion of many times the wealth of the Gen X, and definitely millennials, and definitely Gen Z, right? The boomer generation still has vast quantities of the wealth. Now they're losing some of that to their medical bills, but they still hold the vast majority as a generation, right? And so the boomer generation acquired many houses, starting from the point of this giveaway by the capitalist class that happened in the 50s, plus being on the top of the world as a country, United States, having a very high tax rates, 95% tax rates for the billionaire and the corporate class, right? That has been wound back over the last 70 years. But anyway, long story short, so American boomers have, on average, multiple houses because they start out at a very wealthy positionality in history and in geography of the earth, America in that time, right? The Chinese don't have that. The Chinese boomers don't have houses to rent out because they could barely make it. A lot of them are like very short, and they were malnourished. They're very sickly and ill. It's actually like the silent generation. They actually died. I was talking to Holly. The silent and the generations that were born in the 20s, 10s, 20s, and 30s of America, they died early. They went through the grapes of wrath. They went through the Depression. Many of them, they died early. They did not get very rich. A lot of them, like some of them did, but a lot of them, they did not. They went through. Now in China, it was actually harder, but because China was the poorest in the world. But the Americans that lived through the Depression, they didn't. A lot of them didn't reach that kind of attain the wealth that the boomers did. Right, because of the privileges that they had. So there's this kind of generational generational displacement, right? And there's a kind of and there's a lot of this mismatch, and so the situation in China is that a lot of the young Chinese, like for example, a lot of millennial and Gen Z Chinese, they're actually physically larger. Like they're like the average height. Even my friend Carl Zhao was saying, he was tall in China in like 30, 40 years ago. He was like one of the tallest people in any like area he was in China. I think he's not super tall. He's like 5'11", 5'10". Carl said, when I go back now, I am just like average height. And there are many young Chinese are like physically 3, 4, 5, 6 inches taller than their parents on average. Why? right? Because they have access to far more wealth. That's the part of the success of the socialism of Chinese characteristics, right? Wages have quadrupled or even quintupled now. The purchasing power parity, the Chinese boomers who grew up with no toilets, they had no indoor plumbing, extreme poverty, right? Again, poorer than most of Africa. Today, the young Chinese are richer than Americans, right? They have some young Chinese have more than one house sometimes. Gen Z, Gen Alpha, or upcoming generations of Chinese, the 20-something Chinese, they have world-class infrastructure. The food is extremely cheap. The healthcare is world-class. They're living in the Star Trek utopia, right? They have more than enough healthy, fresh food to eat. Go look at Red Note. Just look at it. Go to China and visit it, visa free. Go see it. So the Chinese are actually physically, the young generation is physically larger. They're also like, they're a bit fairer, but a part of that is because they don't have to do as much like grueling work in the fields. Not that like agricultural work in the farms is bad, but like the 60, 70, 80-year-old Chinese, they had to work extremely hard to build the success that they have today. But they themselves, the grandpas and grandmas today of China, they started out in some of the worst poverty on the earth. They are physically shorter. They died earlier. They are physically more ill. You know, their bodies are just falling apart a lot of the time. They're poorer. You know, Chinese 70, 80-year-olds are poorer. They need their children to help them. In America, millennial and Gen Z need their rich boomer parents to house them. They call it the permanent, they call it the transitional adult, like 30, 45-year-old kid adult, like man children, women children, like these young millennial Gen Z Americans who never buy their own houses. They live with their parents forever. You know that? The Chinese are the opposite. The children have to take care of their parents because the children are like way richer than their parents because they have improved the Chinese income and the Chinese economic situation for the new generations have improved by double, triple, quadruple. It's just the world's greatest success story. 1.4 billion people alleviated from absolute poverty. It's just amazing. In America, America had that they had the mass left movement. And the World War II, right? That historical circumstance. Boomers took off, right? Made a bunch of money for themselves, right? And they had kids, and then, but that's part of the thing. And then the capitalists have been unwinding all of that, all of the bargains the capitalists made, right, of the New Deal, right? The boomers made a whole bunch, and now the capitalists have unwound that since the 1980s, and neoliberal in particular, where all of that progress slowed and then reversed, and the rich started getting way richer, and the new generations were doing worse and worse and worse than the parents, right? And that's where in 2025, that's where we are now. So we have in 2025 we have Gen Z and Gen Alpha entering poverty, right? Americans in poverty, even though they work full time, you're in terms of your housing and your food and what you can afford is really terrible. Anyway, so that's why Americans, young people, have difficulty getting housing because you have parents that are rented. You have the older generation owning many houses and making it and keeping that so that they can make passive income, being landlords, etc. And then the younger generations not being able to progress in their lives. Or at best, if you have a wealthy boomer parent, you just live with them forever, but you never own anything yourself because of these problems. Whereas in China, you have young people that are just ascending in their there's some older people that have wealth, but the majority is actually like middle age and then younger people that are doing much better relative to certainly like 80-year-old Chinese, right? Remember, a lot of the 80-year-old Chinese, they didn't even have literacy. Some of them never learned to read. They never learned to read. Actually, American boomers might have had a higher literacy rate than some of the current generations because of the collapse of education, the collapse of everything. Like millennials had a high, college educational attainment, but after that, it's been falling apart. And so anyway, and so the young Chinese are extremely educated. They're extremely literate. They are attaining. They have more Chinese honor students than America has students. They have all of the. It's like the 90+% of the leading technologies are coming out of Chinese universities are coming out of Chinese. They're coming out of China with Chinese academics, Chinese. I mean, whether it's DeepSeek, whether it's quantum, renewable technology, the world class stealth jet fighters, whether that's producing EVs. I mean, you name it. Artificial suns, fusion, all the breakthroughs are happening in China. That's just where it's happening. All the Chinese American scientists are going back because they're like nothing is. It's not happening here. Even the universities of America are worth American University, Harvard, Princeton, Oxford. They're worth less than a Chinese degree. Nobody in China wants to hire you. If they can choose between just a average Chinese university graduate versus an American elite university graduate, they will choose the Chinese university graduate now. Because just to give you an example, DeepSeek's developers didn't attend the top the top China university, Tsinghua, or even the top 10. The DeepSeek devs were like from just average rural communities. Some of them were even from poorer communities, and they went to just average local colleges. It's the equivalent. It's the equivalent of if like the breakthrough, the Manhattan Project, which actually had a Chinese woman scientist that was never credited in that as well. But it's like if the world class breakthroughs in America is coming from scientists going to like a community college in Kansas. That's the quality of education in China, and the system as well that allows people to have the resources to pursue their maximum potential. Anyway, so long story short, that is another clash of civilizations that's happening in the movie. I feel like that is also playing out both in the box office struggle, but it's also a box office competition, but it's also playing out in the difference of narratives. Let me wrap this up soon, but Captain America's narrative is, I mean, to a large extent, is the United States. Obviously, it's paper thin, right? Number one, they have it does airbrushing for the U.S. empire that is, doing planetary imperialism, colonialism, all the crimes that you should know of if you watch my channel frequently. But if you don't, virtually all the major destructive wars, war crimes of any kind of large scale atrocities, Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, maintaining global capitalist system, imperial colonial extraction, causing misery to billions of people around the world, Africa, Asia, Latin America. I mean, in case you don't know what America does. I saw an American say today, we have just become, I just watched America become the most hated country in the world, like in 2025. And that all that speaks to is the ignorance of America of what the rest of the world actually thinks. It is the number one hated country in the world. I mean, most of the world is in Africa and Asia. 60% of the world comes from China and ASEAN, which is Southeast Asia, and Indonesia. That small little region right there. That's most of the world. Most of the world has big problems with the United States. Most of ASEAN has been invaded, bombed to the Stone Age, and starved by America. China has as well, and its allies. So this idea that Captain America defends the world. I mean, it's only propaganda. That's all it is, right? And America is, the shield is to pretend like America. I've done entire series about this. It's a pretense that America is defending the world, but it's not defending the world. It's defending billionaires, the world's rich, and the world's power crazed warmongers. Like the neocons. It's the only the slight saving grace is there's an accidental breakup of the USAID, NED, and a bunch of these horrible, imperial, Masters of the Universe types, the Doctor Strangelove types, Zbigniew Brzezinski's Grand Chessboard, megalomaniacal, Pelosiites and Victoria Nulandites and Secretary Blinkenites. These kind of people. These are very deranged people. That have threatened nuclear annihilation of the Earth, and short of that, they have caused mass wars across the Earth, proxy wars everywhere. Ukraine, in the Middle East, saber rattling all over the Asia Pacific, and a lot of those, those are the most extreme branch are all getting. I'm not gonna say the Trump administration is doing great things because of great reasons. They're like accidentally. Trump is doing what he's gangster. He's a gangster. Not very not. Uh, he's a very simple gangster person, and accidentally, is wrecking a lot of bigger, slightly more sophisticated evil. I would say that. He's not particularly a good, and his administration is not doing particularly good things. They're also BSing, like what's happening in the EU recently. I don't have time to talk about all of it, but long story short, but America under the current administration, and America definitely under Biden, and basically America for its entire existence, and certainly America post World War II, is not a force for defense of the world. It's a force to maintain empire in the world. This is another important factor. In the colonial era, right, for the last 500 years, the United States is unique in that it's simultaneously had communist, socialist uprising, never complete revolution, but did have large giveaways by the rich that helped the boomers, as I said. That's one thing that America is. It's also a giant settler colony built on slavery and genocide of Native Americans and slavery of black people, among others, and Chinese who built the railroads. So America is those, but it's also a place that had that vast wealth. It was the wealthiest non-destroyed country in World War II, after World War II, and then also was heavily industrialized because of the military-industrial complex that fed World War II. And then all of the European powers, oligarchic colonialist elites, the Winston Churchillites, the Parisian imperialists, they came to America, or they worked with America, the EU elites, European elites, and the Japanese elites, the colonialists, as they were, in shambles. They came to America. The elites did, not all the people, came to DC, and they built, right, the U.S. planetary neo-colonial empire, right? So that's another factor there, right? So, and those people that, they were already American elites, but then they invited all the others to then subjugate the earth under the U.S. empire, as the rest of the world was in shambles. The rest of the colonial powers were in shambles. So it was a unification of all the colonialists all into one place in DC in particular. So that and that has been part of what makes this kind of like, it seems sometimes schizophrenic, or it's just like very different Americas depending on who exactly you're interacting with. And the American elites at the top, the ruling class, is like, quite extremely bad in many ways. Obviously, we can see that, when we look at the wars, when we look at, the Holocaust too in the West Asia that we're still witnessing, right? What kind of people allow such horrible killing all these children, right? Suffering of all these people, right? Starting all these wars on false pretenses, right? I mean, every single war, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, you name it, right? War on terror, all these Syria, chemical weapons, Nair testimony. What kind of sick people do that, right? But it's the worst of the colonial powers that have come into the United States, into its halls of power. Simultaneously, you had all these masses of people that were, we need to have complete revolution. This is also partially why there was no complete revolution, because there's also a lot of there's many reasons why, but one of the problems if the one thing is, if America had complete revolution, maybe the global imperialist system would have died, right? Because if a communist party of the United States, which was also for equality of all nations of the world, building socialism and lifting up rather than keeping Africa and Asia down, which is what America did, and definitely in Central South America down, right, to exploit their resources. If America had a communist party in America in the 1950s, maybe a lot of the last 80 years, the Vietnam, right, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, Iraq War, the last 16 months of live stream genocide, maybe that would have been avoided. Maybe there wouldn't be a ISRAEL settler colony, right? Because the Communist Party would have said, well, we're not going to do that because we need liberation for all. We're not, right? Just like the Communist Party of China and the Communist Party as Communist of the Soviet Union supported Palestine, right? But America didn't, because America, the people, right, had one feeling, but and a lot of them were brainwashed as well. That's another problem, right? Why is America so brainwashed? America is so brainwashed in part because it doesn't have a communist party. It has a disinformational, oligarchic, capitalist control, right? So America has gotten less and less educated and informed about things ever since that time when certainly in the McCarthyite era, when all of the progress that had been made was rapidly disbanded, right? But this is the thing that's why FDR had no interest really in helping the masses of people. He had interest in maintaining his dynastic American wealthy families' oligarchic control by giving away a whole bunch to calm the upswell of communist and socialist parties and mass unionization, and then they're pushing towards the revolution in the United States. And so America it tells this story about itself in the Captain America movies, all of them. Falcon and Winter Soldier. I have to have done 20 hours of streams about Captain America, Falcon and Winter Soldier. You can go watch my videos about that on this channel. I'm sorry, they're like far back, but this way, sign up for the Silver Spook Patreon, and then you get the Silver Spook University that categorizes a lot of my content according to topics. Anyways, so the Captain America movie now has a Red Hulk. It's very thinly veiled anti-communist, right? The red of the Red Army, the red of the Chinese flag. The Red Hulk is the enemy. The red of red is a symbol of revolution. Revolution is a symbol of change, and it's definitely a major color when it comes to the Reds. Was communism, right? We got to go fight the Reds, right? In the Cold War, right? The Red Scare, right? And the Yellow Peril, right? So kind of all the Yellow Peril is like this because it happens to also be yellow stars. But part of that is a racist thing, which is also tied into this anti-Asianness. But there's also yellow stars and there's a red flag in the Chinese flag, and so so this is the Captain America story is one that's trying to tell this narrative about, basically what I can gather about the story. I'm not gonna buy tickets to that. I'm not seeing a lot of movies because there's still airborne, very bad viruses. Let's put it that way. Many of them actually right now, and in part because of the U.S. biological warfare to try to maintain hegemony and imperial capitalism. And so the Red Hulk is a story of America resisting an antagonistic, evil, aggressive, planetary China. I feel like that's like, it's not just in these movies, right? There's a TV show called Lioness that's just about Chinese, Mexican, Russian, evil, nefarious drug traffickers trying to overthrow America by injecting fentanyl into every American arm. Right? That's like it's ridiculous, right? And it's not just that. There's news reports, right? I actually had an interesting one of the interactions I had in Changshu was there was a Chinese person who was in Canada or America, and I said there was a question: will the United States and the West stop smearing China now? That was a Chinese person asked that, and I said no, they won't, because the United States is still wanting to the imperialists that still run the U.S. is not different because there's Doge Boy in charge, right? He's just making sure the wealth goes to Doge, and Elon and the billionaire tech bros are just making sure more of the wealth goes to them. They're not cleaning anything up really. They're accidentally screwing themselves. But the U.S. is still run by imperialists. Billionaires are jeopardized. Their billionaire wealth is jeopardized, by the existence of large communist parties and socialist countries like China. Elon does make money, but he doesn't in the long run. And even whatever Elon wants, Elon is one billionaire of many oligarchs, right? The United States still has plans. It is. I just read an article. I pointed out like 9 hours ago, right? Yesterday, there was a CBC article that said China and Mexico are working together to move the cocaine of the sea, right? Which is the Chinese and Mexicans are working together to secretly, and using some Canadians too. It's a CBC was talking about U.S. and Mexico and Canada are all working together to traffic fentanyl into America to disease Americans and to destroy American civilization. That was a Canadian. That was like yesterday. There was a Washington Post article in the last week that talked about China is trafficking the fentanyl. Mexico and China, they're all trafficking the fentanyl. They're still, trying to destroy the Philippines. They're gonna attack Taiwan any second now. The United States is not done, right? It's now, of course, America's probably not gonna win in this situation. I mean, it's not gonna win anything, but the United States empire is not done. It is not done being a belligerent, aggressive, imperialist, lying, cheating, stealing, killing. The 1492 energy, the last 500 years of this colonialist, barbaric structure that supplanted the Silk Road, win-win cooperative structure before that, led by China. That is not those people. That system is not done yet. Right. It is getting out of Ukraine. It is getting out of that war because they are wasting the resources there. It's wasting lives, wasting everything there. But they're getting out of Ukraine. They're pulling out of USAID and NED because they're done pretending to be the good guy. Now that was a more successful imperial global system, right? And the Trumpian version is more neo-mercantilist hard power. But the United States is not done, right? America is going to take off the shield, maybe. Captain America is produced by the Democrat, liberal, Hollywood, liberal, the more virulent, the worst, but the mask on imperial, right? And that's why they have the shield, right? But the Trump is going to bring the sword out. The Trump administration, the Rubio administration, they're going to bring the sword out. They're saying power is power, right? Canada, you're on the menu. Denmark, Europe, you're on the menu. Mexico, whether they will succeed. Panama, you're on the menu. We're not nice. We'll eat whoever we want to eat. In China, we have our sights on you. Now, of course, like it's not gonna. They could get a lot of people killed. But it's unlikely that they will succeed, given that the power of the BRICS, the rise of SCO, the trade. I mean, just a lot of it is bluster, for sure. But you cannot underestimate the imperialists. You cannot underestimate the West, the depths to which they will fall. But they're still with the cap. This is part of why the Captain America movie is ringing so weird. It's ringing very hollow right now, right? Because it's a movie that's trying to tell the story of this evil, aggressive China trying to destroy America. And they are still trying to tell that story. They're still trying to make up the story about this evil, aggressive China. But then you have very honest... But they're telling the lies, right? The imperialists based upon, the liberal liar propagandist that's like projecting everything that you do onto others, right? But the Trumpian neo-mercantilist... old world, like 1800 style colonialism, right? Where we have power, we take your territory, right? We have money, we have power, we have guns, you give us money. It's colonial. It's like older colonialism. We have tariffs, we have big economic power, you have small economic power. We're going to put this tariff on you. We're going to alter the situation. We're going to make more money than you because we'll take in more. When we trade, we're gonna win from that because we're gonna make sure that we're getting more products in, and you're getting and less is going out. So that the total flow is gonna be positive in our direction, and we will do anything and everything we have to do to get that. Right? We're gonna take your oil, we're gonna take your lithium, and we're gonna take it the hard way. We're gonna take it whatever way we can. We're not gonna pretend like we care about your human rights and your freedom and your democracy. Right, so the EU is kind of like the EU was left out of the Trump, right, Putin conversation. The Vance and the Trump is going to the EU and they're going, the Hegseth is like, you have to power. Hegseth actually said it out loud. He said to the EU, he said, European Union, you're going to put 5% of your budgets into your own defense now. Okay? Because you can't, this is Trump's administration, he said, you cannot shoot values. Values are great. Values are very nice. Countries should have values. But you can't shoot values out of a gun. You can't shoot flags. You can only shoot bullets, 155 millimeter shells. You can only shoot HIMARS rockets. You can shoot Patriot missiles. You can shoot, Orezhnik. You can shoot Orezhniks. You can shoot a underground made Al Ghul sniper rifle. You can shoot a the Taipodong missile. You can shoot missiles from a 6th generation stealth fighter. You can shoot super high altitude anti F-35 detectors, right? That can easily unmask within 2,000 kilometers every single American stealth fighter. Those are weapons, right? But this European, you cannot just go around and lecture people anymore. Or you can't. We don't need the value. Who cares? The values is irrelevant. Human rights, freedom, those are nice, but those are not weapons. That's not power. Power is power. It's very like Game of Thrones, right? It's like, so Europe, you are going to need to get yourself. We're not going to defend you anymore. Russia's going to do whatever Russia's going to do. We're going to do whatever we're going to do. We might just take Greenland. If you don't want us to take Greenland, get some guns. Get some soldiers. We're not going to play this anymore. We're going to eat you now. Europe, we're going to eat you now. Right? It's kind of like fair warning, right? America's like, Europe, if you don't get your own military, we're going to invade Britain and France, and you will become the 52nd state. Europe will be the 52nd state of the American empire. And it's like, I mean, obviously, it's probably, I don't know if that will happen, but it is like, it's kind of, that is what the U.S. has always been about. And the Europe has not been a player to that entire game. This is the Europeans elites have just been begging for money at the Washington Military Industrial Complex trough the whole time. It's not a sovereign place. So it's part of most of the world is like, I mean, yeah, fuck those people, man. Those are like the deadbeat leeches of the empire, just like on the back. I mean, not of a European, but like the elites, certainly. I mean, they're over there talking to other people about how undemocratic African and Asian countries are when their country is entirely run from Washington D.C., a foreign country. So anyway, but long story short, so that's where like this that's where the Captain America, we're defending the world from, Captain America himself is liberal values propaganda, right? I just have the shield and I'm saving people. That's a lie, right? And evil communist Russia and China, they're going to come and beat you up if America doesn't come in and put military bases inside your house, inside your country, and save you, right? Spoiler alert, most of the world don't want a U.S. military bases in there because it doesn't help. It only benefits U.S. interests, and it subjugates the country under global imperialism, capitalism. And most of the world actually is getting China and Russian help now, and BRICS help, and they don't care about America now. So that's why America is turning to small little. Who can America eat? It is who can America eat? Canada. They're testing out South and Central American countries. They're testing Europe. Right? America can subjugate and the Europeans and the Canadians and the Japanese. Everybody else is like, right? The Taiwanese are like, oh, but we were such good vassals too. We did everything you said. And America's like, we don't care. Didn't you listen to Kissinger? Right? It's bad to be America's enemies, but it is fatal to be America's friends. So now you will die, And I'm not saying that I'm not saying Canada, Europe's going to die, but America is moving in that direction. They are moving in that direction. They cannot challenge China. Scott Ritter came out and said, we cannot beat China. And it's true, right? He says lots of other weird, incorrect stuff, but that he is honest in that. And the U.S. isn't going to. They're still going to try. They're going to do something very stupid. They're going to probably do something very stupid. The liberals aren't completely gone. They're still around. They're having their entire wasp nest racked and thrown into upheaval by Tulsi Gabbard in the Trump administration. Tulsi was directly persecuted and almost was put in prison or executed by Hillary Clinton and the Democrat imperialists, and so a lot of the deep state. So part of this is personal for Trump. It's personal for, because a lot of people were against Trump as well. It's personal for Trump. It's personal for Tulsi. Elon is just a weird guy who they're all kind of like it's a circus clown. It's kind of like it's a bunch of weird. It's a weird renegade Republican. I don't even know what to call it. It's almost like the not the Suicide Squad, but there's a weird crew that is going and causing a lot of damage inside the United States, and they're retooling it, not necessarily for good, but they're accidentally making it less. Accidentally making it slightly more competent in a mask off neo-mercantilist, like overtly barbaristic American empire fashion. I mean, it's arguable because it is a lot of money is wasted in a lot of this just financialized, spinning money around, not producing anything, you're not really winning Ukraine. So that is actually, morally it's just horrible, obviously, but also it's not conducive to really making any immoral imperial gains as well. Anyway, let me stop philosophical. I gotta go because I gotta end. I gotta do another event later on today. Anyway, but long story short, so but I think that so the clash of the narrative of informational, the domain is one of the most of the three imperial control, the triumvirate of imperial control is the informational domain, narrative domain, or the minds of people, money, or control of the money system, dollar hegemony, etc. And then you have the military hard power, threat of invasion, threat of war, threat of destruction, subjugation with weapons, guns, armies. Right, but the U.S. and the mind control is the most important in narrative domain, and so this is also a clash of that story. Like which story will win out? Will the American story, it's one of the things is the American story is shattering, right? There was a lot of America is the liberal, like we are the defender of freedom, rights, rules-based order, freedom, rights, human democracy, or freedom, democracy, human rights, rules-based order, rule of law, right? What USAID, NED, right? This CIA rebranded for the nicer, more airbrushed empire's image, right? We're just trying to save the world from evil and make everyone live happy, healthy, productive lives or whatever. They put out Bill Gates and Bill and Melinda Gates and the Clintons foundations, philanthropic orgs, right? We're all just trying to heal the world, have a Michael Jackson concert and have a Bono come and sing for you while we steal everything. That narrative, right? That is played out in a lot of all American movies. Certainly the Avengers movies. It's about America saving the world from these evil Ultrons and Thanoses. Thanos is the thinly veiled Russia and China as well. Thinly veiled communism, right? Half the people die. It's kind of like because China had a one-child policy, so half of the population will, it takes a little bit longer than instantaneous disappearance of half the population, but the one-child policy, that's part of what inspired the Thanos story. That part of Thanos' arc, right? Is like China was going to be cutting their population technically in half in a generation because most of the population would be required to have no more than one child, right? So, and the U.S. is going to save the world from evil communism, right? That was, going to stop you, forcing women to have birth. It's really screwed up, but that's Western, fascist imperialist thinking, which is that when communism evil and there's all these stories, and then that's a lot of the quiverful right wingers, like we have to increase our birth rates because we have to increase our birth rates. Maybe we can get a leg up on China as they advance, if we can just like make every white woman birth like 65 children, then like that will save us from our demographic inadequacies or something. Um, and anyway, so that narrative of like the U.S. is gonna save the world from the evils coming out of the East, out of communism, those are deeply challenged. Also, like cinema isn't the only place, right? The movie theater isn't the only place where these kind of things are established, right? There's a concrete. I mean, this is one of the Chinese more rely on the nitty gritty. Like they don't really do this kind of soft, telling this Western messianic proselytizing evangelical prescriptive, but which stems, it's a lot of all of that comes this hegemonic supremacist colonialist mentality. So people are talking about that. That's one of the hardest things to deal with, right? The Western mentality is my way is the one right way, and my job is to tell you about why your way is wrong and you must adopt my way, right? My Protestantism is better than your Catholicism. Let me convert you. Or my Catholicism is better than your I will convert you, right? Violently, I mean, with words or with guns. I'm gonna make you into me, because I am the best, obviously, right? We have the best system, of course, and you don't know it yet, right? That's deep Western culture that like goes all the way back, really. Certainly, several hundreds of years, right? And so that attitude, but the Chinese don't have that in their history, right? They have always had a multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multi-cultural civilization state that has accepted differences and prospered because of the differences. So this, right? Now, if you like aspects of a neighbor's culture, you should enjoy the differences. And the differences together make the world better, make life the spice of life, right? The world is better with many differences, so you can try different flavors all the time. The thing is, in China, they say, if you know how to cook and you have many good friends, you will never eat the same dish over 10 years, right? Because you can always mix the ingredients, even though cuisine reflects their values. Whereas Western cuisine is very mono ingredient. That's one of the Chinese go like, I know what the lunch of sadness is like because I see a German eating uncooked broccoli and uncooked carrot every single day of their life. And I know I look at the American. What is the height of American cuisine? The Twinkie. That was my contribution to that. The Twinkie is the pinnacle and the essence of American food culture. But it's like it is. It's very same. Have your steak and fries. Have your steak fries, potatoes. Steak fries shake. McDonald's. Yoga studio, Starbucks everywhere, right? It's like there is one way to do things, and this is the way. It's our way, or the highway. Right? Difference is not good. Difference must be eradicated because the different is inferior and ours is the better, right? And so that whether that's economic systems, whether that's how the U.S. Deals with other countries, you have to adopt our freedom, human rights, democracy. You have to adopt a Western style government, or sanction, destruction, IMF, debt trap, military invasion, coup, color revolution, blah, 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 blah. You do what we say, right? But that's deep Western European culture. Deep culture. It's also, they were at war the whole time. China was at peace for much of its time. Inside of China, China is bigger than inside of Europe, but Europe has been in massive, constant strife that whole time. It's one of the things that the Chinese look over there and they go, how come you guys couldn't never figure out? We had periods thousands of years ago where we had a lot of strife inside, but we figured out how to coexist after maturing as a civilization state, as a large continental polity. We figured this out, but the Europeans, they never really did. They have to figure it out now, and so and that's part of the clash of the civilizations on top of cinemizations. And I have to end. I'm gonna keep going, so I gotta stop. If you'd like to support us, you can help us at ko-fi.com/silverspook. Give us a one-time donation. And it is greatly appreciated. What's up, Grant? Also, and you can also help us out at patreon.com/Neofeud. At patreon.com/Neofeud, you can give us ongoing support and also get access to the Silver Spook behind the scenes, such as the Neofeud 2 that I'm currently working on finishing up. I'm just about I'm just about 60%. I got the most of the script in a script file, and then I will be sending out that to doing the casting call like shortly after that for Neofeud 2. I'm going to be doing a stream later on today. Oh, I got to make a flyer for that. Shoot, I should have done that sooner. Where we're going to be talking about health. We're going to be talking about dealing with pandemics. We're going to be talking about dealing with remote work and trying to reduce exposure to viruses and living in that way, being disabled, dealing with long COVID on the Twitch stream. It's going to be happening a bit earlier, so don't forget. We're going to have our friend Complaining Eleni and Neuro Riot, who are often around our community and sometimes in these streams, will be joining, and that's going to be fun. And of course, also, so you can get access to all the updates and also access to the Silverspook Discord and also access to the Silverspook University, which is as I said previously, all the content we have produced are categorized according to the topics. And it is Silverspook. Anyways, so you can also help us out by grabbing Neofeud. Neofeud is most of my day is actually making anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist games, adventure games, science fictional games like Neofeud. Neofeud is a game where a cyborg social worker, an ex-con robot, and an ex-trillionaire princess try to stop a global oligarchic floating palace living neo-feudal royalty from destroying everything. With hippie terminators, ex-con robots, unplugged Matrix agents, wannabe Bruce Willis's, and all kind of other fun, silly, satirical hijinks, but also some very serious moments as well. And of course, also this game is on sale. Sorry, you can wishlist it, and it's also a game that if you do leave even a very short review, helps us get the game discovered in the Steam algorithm. If you have played Neofeud, and you liked it, you can also get Neofeud on itch.io for Windows and for Mac and for Linux, and several other games like Decolonators, where you fight. Speaking of Red, the Red enemy, you can in Decolonators, you play a communist fighting against the colonial capitalist and kicking them out of your sovereign country of Vietnam in the 20th century. You can also get Pigeon with Gun, which is a comedy game about being Luigi Mangione as a bird. And There's Woman, which is a book by Holly, who was raised in right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity and is about critiquing that culture through the eyes of Mary within the Bible. You can also follow, as I said, on Little Red Note. You can follow Little Red Note, also known as Red Book or Xiaohongshu. You can follow me at the Silverspook. Silverspook, follow me there. Just search for Silverspook in the Red Note. And of course, you can also follow on Twitter, on Mastodon at Silverspook Games, at mastodon.social, and or at Silverspook Games at wandering.shop. You can also follow on Twitter at Silverspook Guy for my personal takes, and or Silverspook Games for the games related stuff. And of course, you can also follow Holly at Allergic to Blue. Holly is, of course, moderator here, married to myself. Happy Valentine's Day. I forgot I got Valentine's Day stuff all over the wall. Yeah. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy decolonization of Captain Cook on the same day. The colonizer overstayed his welcome in Hawaii, and then he died. And Holly, of course, is sharing important things like, guess what? We're still in a pandemic, so please protect yourself with these things. And also, thank you, all of our Patreons, for your ongoing support. Massively appreciated. Without your support, it's hard for us to keep doing this work, so thank you so much to all of the Patreon patrons. Until next time, keep your mirror shades polished, be excellent to each other, and yes, have a good one. Watch Neja too. Yeah. Watch Neja too. I don't know about this Captain America, man. Captain Star Spangled Imperialism.